10 Weirdest Places on Earth. 10. The Fly Geyser, Nevada, USA. Most people don't even know this exists, and that's because it's hidden on private land. The Fly Geyser in Nevada looks like it was ripped straight out of a sci-fi movie. It's a 5-foot-tall mound of rock that constantly shoots boiling water into the air, and it's covered in neon green and red algae, giving it colors that look completely unnatural. Here's the wild part. Humans accidentally created it. Back in 1964, a geothermal energy company drilled a well here and didn't seal it properly. The scalding water kept pushing up, depositing minerals over decades, and slowly built this alien-looking structure all by itself. The surrounding pools are vivid turquoise. The steam never stops. And because it sits on a private ranch, only a handful of people get to see it each year. It genuinely looks like a portal to another world. 9. Socotra Island, Yemen. If you dropped someone on Socotra Island without telling them where they were, they'd be convinced they landed on another planet. This island in the Arabian Sea has been so isolated for millions of years that nearly a third of its plant life exists nowhere else on Earth. The most famous is the dragon blood tree. It looks like a giant green umbrella floating in the sky, with a thick trunk and branches that fan out perfectly flat on top. When you cut the bark, it bleeds dark red sap. The island also has bottle trees that look inflated, like someone pumped air into them, and bright blue skies that contrast against the alien-looking landscape. Scientists call it the Galapagos of the Indian Ocean. It's one of the most biodiverse and visually bizarre places on the entire planet. 8. Lake Hillier, Australia. From above, Lake Hillier in Western Australia looks like someone filled a lake with strawberry milk and placed it right next to the deep blue Southern Ocean. The contrast is almost too perfect to look real. The lake is bubblegum pink, not slightly pink, not pinkish, a solid, consistent, bright pink. And unlike other pink lakes around the world, that change color depending on light or season, Lake Hillier stays pink all year round, even if you scoop the water into a bottle. Scientists believe the color comes from a combination of specific algae and halophilic bacteria, microorganisms that thrive in ultra-salty environments. The lake is about 600 meters long. It sits right on the edge of Middle Island, and it's surrounded by dense eucalyptus forest, which makes the color pop even more when viewed from the sky. Nobody lives there. Almost nobody visits. It just sits there being impossibly pink. 7. The Cave of Crystals. Mexico. Underneath the Nika mine in Chihuahua, Mexico, there's a cave that looks like the inside of Superman's fortress. Massive white gypsum crystals, some of them over 36 feet long and weighing 55 tons, jut out in every direction. They are the largest natural crystals ever discovered on Earth. But here's the brutal catch. The cave sits about 300 meters underground, and the temperature inside is 136 degrees Fahrenheit, with nearly 100% humidity. Without a special cooling suit, a human being can only survive in there for about 10 minutes before their lungs start taking on water from the moisture in the air. Scientists had to wear ice-packed suits just to study it. The cave was only discovered in the year 2000 when miners accidentally broke through a wall and found it. It's been sealed off now, and it's slowly flooding back with water, which means one day it may be completely inaccessible again forever. 6. The Richat Structure, Mauritania. From space, the Sahara Desert has a giant bullseye on it, a perfect circle, 50 kilometers wide, etched into the sand of Mauritania. It's called the Richat Structure, and for decades scientists thought it had to be a meteor impact crater. What else could make a perfect ring that massive? But after extensive research, they figured out it's actually an eroded geological dome. Over millions of years, rock layers were pushed up and then worn down at different rates, creating these perfectly concentric rings of different colored rock. It is so large and so geometrically precise that NASA astronauts used it as a landmark to track their position from space during early missions. Standing at ground level, you can't even tell you're inside it. But from above, it looks like someone drew a target on the Earth. Some people even connect it to the lost city of Atlantis. The rings match descriptions that Plato wrote about thousands of years ago. 5. Pamukkale, Turkey. On a hillside in southwestern Turkey, There are white terraces that look like they've been carved from snow and filled with crystal blue water, except they're made entirely from calcium deposits. Pamukkale, which means cotton castle in Turkish, formed over thousands of years as geothermally heated water, rich in calcium carbonate, flowed down the hillside and hardened into white terraces. Each terrace holds shallow pools of warm turquoise water that overflow into the next one below it. The result is something that looks like a frozen waterfall made of white rock, with pools of warm blue water at every level. Ancient Greeks and Romans built a city right next to it called Hierapolis because they believed the waters had healing powers. People have been bathing in these pools for over 2,000 years. It's one of those places where photographs don't even look real. Visitors always think the images are edited. 4. The Danakil Depression, Ethiopia. The Danakil Depression in northeastern Ethiopia is one of the hottest, lowest, and most geologically active places on the surface of the Earth. Temperatures regularly hit 145 degrees Fahrenheit. It sits 410 feet below sea level, and the landscape looks like the inside of a volcano, because essentially, it is one. Hydrothermal activity constantly pushes sulfuric acid and superheated water up through the ground, creating pools of neon yellow, green, and orange that bubble and hiss. The colors come from sulfur deposits and various minerals that crystallize around the vents. Salt flats stretch for miles. Lava lakes glow nearby. Camel caravans still cross through here to mine salt, one of the most dangerous jobs on Earth. Scientists study this place closely because the extreme conditions are similar to environments found on other planets, meaning the microbes living here might help us understand what life looks like on Mars. 3. Son Doong Cave, Vietnam. Son Doong in Vietnam is not just a large cave. It is the largest cave on Earth by volume, and it's so enormous that it has its own weather system. Inside, there are jungles, there are rivers, there are clouds that form near the ceiling and produce their own localized fog and mist. The cave stretches over 5.5 miles long and reaches heights of nearly 650 feet, tall enough to fit a 40-story skyscraper inside with room to spare. It was only discovered in 1991 by a local farmer who heard wind and rushing water coming from a hole in a cliff, and even then, it wasn't explored by scientists until 2009. The entrance alone involves a 260-foot vertical drop on a rope. Once inside, explorers found a lost world, ancient stalagmites taller than buildings, underground beaches, and patches of prehistoric-looking jungle growing under the holes in the ceiling where sunlight breaks through. Only a few hundred people are allowed to visit per year, and the permit costs thousands of dollars. 2. Lake Natron. Tanzania Lake Natron in northern Tanzania looks beautiful from the sky. A pale pink and red lake, calm and flat, nestled at the foot of a volcano. But it is one of the most corrosive bodies of water on Earth. The lake has a pH level close to 10.5, nearly as alkaline as pure ammonia, and the water temperature can reach 140 degrees Fahrenheit near its hydrothermal springs. The sodium carbonate in the water acts almost like a preservative. Any animal that dies in or around the lake gets calcified. Their body hardens into a stone-like shell, perfectly preserved in the position they died in. Photographer Nick Brandt famously found calcified birds and bats along the shore and photographed them in lifelike poses. They looked like statues. And yet, despite all of this, the lake hosts the largest breeding colony of flamingos on Earth. Millions of flamingos nest here because the extreme conditions keep predators away. It's one of the strangest contradictions in nature, a deadly lake that also sustains the world's largest concentration of one of its most beautiful birds. 1. The Spotted Lake, Canada. In the Okanagan Valley in British Columbia, there's a lake that looks like the surface of another planet. Spotted Lake, known as Keeluk by the indigenous Okanagan people, is covered in dozens of perfectly circular spots, each one a different color. Some are yellow, some are green, some are blue, some are almost white. In summer, most of the lake's water evaporates, leaving behind dense concentrations of different minerals, calcium, sodium sulfate, magnesium sulfate, each of which forms its own colored pool. The circular shapes form naturally as the mineral deposits crystallize and harden. The colors change depending on which minerals are most concentrated that season. The indigenous Okanagan people have considered this lake sacred for thousands of years. They believed different spots had different healing properties and used the minerals to treat wounds. During World War I, the minerals were even harvested from the lake to make ammunition. Today, the land is protected and owned by the Okanagan Nation. And every summer, this field of colorful circles reforms itself all over again, exactly the way it has for thousands of years.